What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from Amsterdam and across the world online. You're now watching The More Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined with my guest, Christopher Smith. Now Christopher is a new breed of spiritual teacher, a contemporary mystic bringing together the methods of meditation, self-investigation, personal development and personal training to empower and awaken each individual and community. Now he brings a combination of mind, body, spirit together in his radical teaching methods. Now he joins me today to discuss his latest book, The Secret Self, a practical guide to spiritual awakening and inner freedom. Christopher Smith, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you. Great book, by the way, The Secret Self, a practical guide to awakening and inner freedom. Why this book? What was driving you to have an awakened experience?
Oh, it's a good question. I think that I think for most people, including my own self, was I think suffering is a big factor. When we go through certain challenges, certain things in our life, I think that pushes us towards opening up to a deeper awareness of self. I think we become more introspective in those moments, and we start to question, why are certain things happening to me? Why do I feel this way? Why am I thinking these thoughts, etc. And so for me, depression and many challenging situations were kind of a catalyst to kind of to awaken something deeper within me. And then, the book just came naturally, really. The book. I think when you step on something profound that you've discovered yourself, I think it's very, very difficult to keep that in. I think it becomes a natural expression to express it and to offer that opportunity to other people. And I think that's what the book was. It just kind of come through me very effortlessly. And And I think the result is just a potential guide for people for their own process, how to initiate that process, how to awaken themselves, and kind of the journey that unfolds and the different methods and practices that can be used to kind of go through that process.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Nice answer. And is that depression still with you sometimes?
It's funny because I think that I've heard this, you might have heard it yourself before. I've heard a saying before of when like a Zen story, and this enlightened master was asked, he was asked what was different before and after awakening. He says, before awakening, he says, I had depression. He says, after awakening, I still had depression. And and the interesting thing about it is that everything can still be there. The thoughts, even feelings, sensations can still be there. Even your life circumstances can remain the same. But yet there's some kind of shift that's taken place where you're kind of free from all of that. It still can be experienced, but yet there is a freedom from it. There is like a space from it. So, yeah, sure, moments arise, you wake up, and there's certain what you would call negative limiting thoughts there. There's certain feelings where you wake up and you don't feel very pleasant. Your body doesn't feel pleasant. There's certainly challenging situations that come across in life. I think that will never end for anybody. And but yet at the same time, while all of that is existing, there is this freedom from it. There is this space from it where everything is allowed to kind of be there without being identified with and without suffering it, if that makes sense.
Well, the suffering of it definitely makes sense. Without the suffering of it, yeah, most definitely. That's what people are looking for, isn't it? Some people may want their life to look very different. In a sense, their suffering is based on they wish things were so different. They're not accepting everything just as it is right now. I guess the inner awakening allows that to happen.
Yes. Yeah, that is a massive part of suffering is expectations not being met. So we have all of this, we've come up through society and we get all of this conditioning and programming heaped onto us about how the world works and about what success means, what happiness means. And really, it's a pursuit for people who are always kind of looking into the future to acquire more, to achieve more, to get more, to become more. And that leaves people in a restless state, in a place of suffering, and in a place where they can't really enjoy the profound nature of their own self in this moment right now and life as it is. There is a great peace when we're able to just accept and just allow life to be as it is right now. It's almost like the lenses of distortion of the mind and conditioning kind of relax and move to one side so that the life as it is right now becomes more enhanced. It's like it was in front of us all of this time, the beauty of it, the freedom of it, the peace of it, and yet we couldn't see it because we were lost in the mind and wanting something else, So it's crazy, but that's the nature of mind, of programming, is to always want to put us into the future.
Yes, or live in the past as well for some people. And it may be a case that some people are wanting to find this inner moment, this inner awakening, or that space that we've just talked about, yet they don't, they feel that, well, will things change that much? I mean, can I trust it? Is it even worth it? Is it even worth me giving it a go, in a sense?
Yeah. I mean, that is another little dirty trick of the mind for sure. Because what it wants is, again, that's part of the condition, is thinking that if I move into awakening, everything in my so-called external life is going to change. So what that means is that the mind is more focused upon, again, the future, what's differently is going to be brought to me, like new circumstances, new relationships, And again, it's taking us away from actually what awakening is, which is coming to ourselves right now in this moment and waking up more fully, more intensely to the richness of this moment, to be able to experience it more intensely, to live on purpose, as opposed to maybe living with purpose or trying to create a purpose in the future.
Is purpose doing what you love, or is purpose doing nothing in a sense? Are you talking about nothingness in one sense, where just in a moment of silence you can find all the answers, or is this a bigger picture effort? Because obviously there's a lot we haven't talked about yet. I'm just trying to get straight to the solution.
Yeah. You see, for me, purpose is this moment right now. It's whatever we are doing at any given moment. To me, that's the primary purpose, if you will. I talk about this in the book. I talk about two types of purpose. One being the primary of this moment right now, whatever we are doing, whatever is unfolding in this moment, to live on purpose, intensely, mindfully, fully aware. And then the secondary purpose is kind of like a direction of where life is kind of leading to. You know, step by step, we're moving in this direction and it's moving towards this kind of unfolding.
Right, because you're taking steps to get there, yeah.
That's it. And if each step is done on purpose, mindfully in the moment, it creates a better quality, a better richness of what we're doing, which means that the end result will be better as well. So that secondary purpose will be better if we focus on the primary purpose of living on purpose right now.
Some people, and I'm not judging people here, this is just examples, obviously, are only doing what they're doing right now because they want to get somewhere else. That's their goal, is to get wherever they're going to get to, or whatever it is they want to achieve. Then their life will be more in balance with what they really want. What they want right now is to get to that point. So really, they're ignoring this moment, aren't they? And they're in pain as well in this moment because they've not got to where they've got.
Yeah, that absolutely, Kevin. Yeah. So there's, because that's the restlessness. That's the restlessness right there. Is like basically what's being said, whether they know it consciously or unconsciously, is that I'm not satisfied with myself or with this moment right now. Therefore, I'm struggling against it. I'm resisting it, which means I'm suffering, and I'm trying to get somewhere, thinking under the illusion, under the misperception that when I get there, everything's going to be rosy. Everything's going to be, then I'm going to have found this completeness, this fulfillment. And that's the illusion of society. And we can see this in our own experience. I mean, anybody out there, us, we've all lived where we've placed our expectation in the future, thinking that when I get that relationship, when I get that new job, when I get this new circle of friends or make this new achievement or get this amount of money, that everything then is going to be fine and dandy. And it is for a while, maybe, in some circumstances, but then it soon leaves us restless again, because then the mind is taking us off for the next thing. We've got to get the next thing that's going to make us complete. And, most people live their entire existence like that, in this kind of restless pursuit, and they never really enter the present moment. They never really enter right here, right now. They never find it, they never see it, they never truly experience it, because they're just lost in the head, in the intellect.
Absolutely. So what we're saying here is that you can have exactly what you wish to experience, and knowing that the present moment is a stepping stone towards that. You're not saying don't do anything to go and achieve that. It's more of a case of everything that you do, if it's in alignment with what you should be doing as well. If you're passionate about what you're trying to achieve as well, is there some deep fulfillment in what you're trying to do? You may not be doing it yet. You may be building towards it, for example. You're in no wrong space except the space that you're exactly supposed to be in right now. But it's accepting that, isn't it? It's when does one stop fighting that?
When does one? I think a lot of it is realizations. As soon as you have that realization, you see it as a truth on a deep, deep level. you really come to terms with it and you see that that is the truth, only then do you really then does the mind relax and you start to find yourself right here and now. You have to, one thing that I always share is being able to just let go of all ideas, just dropping all ideas, because we have so many ideas and these ideas take us away from this moment right now. And it distorts what we see. But yeah, it's an inclusive process. Being here right now doesn't negate anything. It doesn't negate the ability to take steps forward towards something. It's just that we make sure that our full awareness is in this moment, in each step that we're taking. Even in a plan, if we're planning something, our awareness is here right now, planning that thing. And that way we don't get lost in that misperception of where we are future orientated. We're in this kind of goal orientated mind, because it really is just an illusion that's going to leave us actually feeling empty again if we buy into that.
That's right. I've done quite a few interviews on law of attraction, and I don't think all the time it sort of goes into what you've just explained there on such a deep level. In one sense, I think it's part. If we could apply some of this teaching into that which we desire, it would probably make the process a lot more enjoyable in some respects, because maybe a lot of these great authors mention these moments, but they say it in a different way. I don't, that could be the case. But I do like the way that you're saying it.
Yeah, I like to call that the law of no attraction. Just yesterday, actually, I was having dinner with a friend, and what he's been doing, he's actually a big follower of law of attraction style teachings. Yeah. And what's happened is that he's been fully focused on. He's got like a contest coming, like a boxing contest. So he's been fully focused on this. And twice now, these contests have been cancelled. So I says, well, it must be the law of no attraction, because in other words, what I'm joking around, but what I'm saying is basically is that, like what you've just said, is that this law of attraction style teaching, it's trying to pigeonhole everything in this one kind of category, that if you just think and believe what you want, it's going to happen. But we can see that that's not the case. We can see that some of the time it seems to work, other times it doesn't seem to work. And the reason for that is because, yes, if you change the way that your attitude is, you can certainly achieve more than your average person. But it doesn't mean that everything is going to revolve around you all of a sudden, and that everything is going to change in accordance just because you think and believe it. There's many things in the so-called creation process that need to be done for something to come about. As an example, using a personal example of writing the book that I've just read. Right. If I just sat there and thought to myself, I'm just going to believe it's going to happen, I'm just going to think it's going to happen, would it have happened? Well, no, because I needed to take the action. I needed to know what I'm talking about as well, or what's coming through me, and have some experience with that. So there's different elements that are needed, and that is just kind of one element. Really what the law of attraction is talking about, that style of teaching, and it's basically a borrowed teaching from old Indian and yogic methods as well, is it's basically just talking about getting your mind in alignment with your own actions, with a deeper intention and with a deeper awareness of self. And when all of those things are in alignment, you have the best chance of something coming to fruition, something being created.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that part where they talk about, when you act or when you express that you've already have that which you're looking for, whatever it may be that you're wanting to attract, you sort of become it anyway. and it comes in a guise that maybe not exactly the way you wanted it to be, but it's just as perfect or even better, because you were open to, not just being completely set on what you thought it was going to be, but you were open to whatever the universe was going to deliver for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was speaking with a friend about this, and I said, I would prefer the name, if we're going to call it a name, maybe call it the law of letting go, because when you truly let go, you take the steps necessary. You have an intention, let's say, to do something, and then you take the steps necessary and you let go. You let go of the result, if you will. And you don't focus again on the future result. You just focus on being here now. Then things do naturally then come more into alignment more effortlessly.
That is so true. That is so true. God, you're interesting. What does inner awakening feel like, in a sense, or inner freedom? Are they the same thing, or are they two different things we're talking about here as well?
Inner awakening, inner freedom, yeah. Inner awakening, to me, is just like spiritual awakening. Is like an initial awakening of something. So it's an initial awakening to a deeper nature. But then what I found is that, and I talk about this in the book, that there is a process that unfolds towards like inner freedom, or what we could call liberation, which it's been called in the East for thousands of years. And that is where we have this initial awakening of who we are, this realization of who we are, beyond mind, beyond thought. And then what tends to happen is that there's a process of the mind kind of becoming liberated, where it's weeding out all of the thoughts that are out of alignment with the present moment and with the truth of reality and self right now. Because we're often, the conditioned mind is holding belief systems and thought patterns that are actually out of alignment with life. It's struggling, it's in opposition to life, it's in conflict to life and in conflict to self. This is why so many people suffer. And, so they are two different things. Yeah. One is an initial awakening. The other is a process that unfolds, what we could also call like spiritual enlightenment, if you will, where a person they've gone through that process where the mind then becomes liberated. And then it's just a free state. There's a free state there where there's no longer any suffering. There's no longer any conflict. It's just complete ease and harmony with life as it is right now. It's almost like you just become another aspect of life. You become life itself, as opposed to a separate, individualized, fragmented sort of aspect where you feel like the world is something completely separate from you.
Okay, so... And in your book as well, you talk about, for example, you're not your body, you're not your brain. So in your opinion, what do you think we are?
Beautiful, great question, isn't it? I don't think that, I think I mentioned in the book that really it can't be named. What we are can't be named. Even to call it soul, even to call it spirit is not, it can't get us to the experience, the direct experience of what it truly is. It's just another concept, if we call it soul, if we call it spirit, or whatever we call it. So the only way that we can come to know it is we have to experience it directly. We have to come to that inner knowing, that inner shift that takes place. And that's what particular methods are for, and particular pointers are for, is to bring us to that space. But we can test this ourselves. I talk about this in the book as well, is that to know that we're not the body and the mind is something that we can test out ourselves directly. We can come to see when we're in meditation, as an example, when we have that space of no mind, if you will, we can see these thoughts and we can see that they're coming and going. But yet they come and go, but we don't come and go. The thoughts come and go, but we don't come and go. Life experiences come and go, but we don't come and go. And also the body can come and go, but we don't come and go. The body is constantly changing, recycling itself. It's never the same. It's a constantly moving, shifting process. Every atom, I talk about this in the book from a scientific point of view, is that they know that the body completely recycles all like atoms and all parts of the body within like a 7 to 10 year cycle. So the 7-year-old body that we were once experiencing is no longer the same as the 17-year-old body, as an example, or 14-year-old body, or 21-year-old body. They're completely new models, but yet there is something that is still there experiencing all of these replaced models. Kind of like getting out of one car into another car, and then another car to another car. So we can, if we look very closely, we can see and test that ourselves and come to that realization of, yes, I can see I'm not the body. I can see I'm not the mind. So what am I? What am I? And then we have to look deeper.
Well, we do, not only to define. I mean, I love what you say because, it's unnameable. And I think that's a great place to start from, and the only place to be at, because, as you say, when we name it consciousness or higher self or whatever we may personify it as, it's greater than that. It's greater than words, and I think you get to a real crux sometimes in your life when you realize that, and that's yeah. Otherwise, it maybe puts some people off that aren't ready to hear that it's this or that it's that, and to come from that space is puts the ball back in the other person's court. That maybe asking the question to themselves, and I think for someone that's not awoken in the sense of maybe that they would be ready to even think that life continues, yet they are looking for the pain to reduce. Yeah, they could still come to your material, couldn't they? And find a balance that works for them.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Because throughout the book, I give methods in what I felt is the correct order to be able to slowly come into this and to slowly start to have these insights and these realizations and this kind of inner looking. And it's for all levels, if you will. It's for all levels of. I try to go all the way from the beginning to the so-called end, if you will, or the most deepest place, and so yeah, people can pick that up at any place that they're at, and there is a particular readiness that is needed for the most deepest, if you will, the most deepest realizations, because sometimes it's just too great of a shift. It's sometimes too great of a shift for people to perceive what's being said. So, there is a kind of maturing and readiness that is needed. And that's where spiritual practice definitely comes in, certain practice and methods.
Well, yes, because I think, when you talk about methods to help spiritually awaken, you can maybe use these same methods on someone that is wanting to experiment, should we say, with finding that place. If they're not ready to use the words that as I've just used, their spiritual awakening, they may, maybe we can call it something else that would still be the same thing. Or, as you've said there, as you go deeper into this, you can't ignore some of these words. I'm personifying your words here. I don't know why I'm going down this route. It's just I feel like, what about the lay person that, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, but someone that really doesn't want to be attached to words too much. Just, they just want it to the pain to finish, and not to finish, but to just find themselves in a better place without any, religious words or even spiritual words.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You don't even have to. You don't even have to call it spiritual. It's just a simple seeing of am I the mind or am I not the mind? Am I these thoughts? Am I these beliefs or am I not? Am I this conditioning or am I not? And you don't even have to, you could be an atheist for that. You could be an atheist. You could be somebody that's not, that that has no kind of religious, because it is beyond, obviously it's beyond all religion as well, but I know what you're saying. The word spiritual might bring up certain connotations in the mind.
Yeah, to give this work a chance, then you do need to be able to look at these deeper subjects. Because I think one method you talk about as well of helping out with a spiritual awakening is meditation, and some people may not be ready for that neither. So maybe it takes a certain person.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a nice little one, I've just done a video on this, is just a simple practice of 5 to 20 seconds of just relaxing all ideas, all labels, all concepts, which we all have the power to do, even if we don't want to sit in a kind of traditional meditation practice. What we can do is we can just relax all thoughts, all concepts, just for 5 to 20 seconds, and to see how that feels and to see where that experience sort of takes us, or to see what is revealed in that experience, if you will. But yeah, I mean, I guess, it takes a certain open-mindedness to be able to explore things deeper. The mind is a very rigid state because of its conditioning. So if there's certain belief systems in place that says, look, this is the way reality is and it's no other way, then that's obviously going to act like some kind of potential blockage to explore this possibility of a greater intelligence, if you will. But like what happens with suffering is usually suffering starts to crack and starts to wear away at some of these belief systems and some of this conditioning, so that people kind of, sometimes get forced into that experience, get forced into that kind of looking. And we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for that. If we have some intelligence, if we have a certain degree of consciousness, we can look at life very honestly, as like a scientist would. Look very objectively at life like a scientist, but looking at our own nature. And we can start to come to see these things ourselves, without having to have any kind of belief system or any kind of preconceived notions about anything. But it definitely helps to be more open if we can.
Yes, absolutely it does. And I think you say as well that suffering is a call for inquiry, and all pain really at some point does need to be investigated. How deep you go with that, well, that's maybe up to you, but to ignore it, well, it's not always great to do that.
No, to me, suffering is showing us where we're out of alignment with our own self and with life as it is. So as an example, if we have if we wake up and we've got this really unpleasant feeling, we have this unpleasant feeling, then we need to investigate what are we believing or thinking that's creating that unpleasant feeling? And then to question whether what we're thinking or believing is true. Is it a true, real fact? Is it in alignment with life, our own self? Or is it something that's a misperception, that is false? And basically we're believing something based upon a false notion. Because that's what suffering is. That's what pain is. Pain is telling us what's out of alignment. The same way that the body, when we get a pain in our hand or a pain in our leg or whatever it is, it's the body's way of telling us, look, something's wrong. There's something wrong there. There's something out of alignment that's going to cause or is causing some damage. And that's the same with our emotions, with our feelings. Our feelings and emotions are telling us that there is something there that is out of alignment, and that's why it feels unpleasant. So we can then investigate that and start to question that. And the more that we question those things, and start to see through them. If I question something, a belief system, and I ask, is it true or not? and I come to the realization it's not true, there's no way that I can keep hold of that belief system. That belief system will then go because I've exposed it. And then what will happen is that when that belief system goes, the emotion will go as well, the unpleasant feeling will go, and it puts us back in alignment with ourselves right now. And most people, they hold so much of these belief systems in the subconscious mind, the mind that they're not aware of. And that's what creates all of this unpleasant feeling, this conflict and this restlessness and this suffering. And if that is taken care of, if we question those thoughts and those beliefs and we meditate upon them, then it sweeps away everything that's keeping us out of alignment, that's keeping us from not being peaceful, not being content, not being free, not being happy.
I suppose those issues, those beliefs, that pain can be so different for everyone. But do you think there's any common themes? Well, maybe I could put this to you as well. And do you think one of the common themes maybe is, how do I know this reality that I'm going to be, that I'm trusting so much is true? Am I invested in something that's not, quite the way it is, and I've just deluded myself? And even if you have deluded yourself, is that reality better than what you had before?
I would say for me, one of the most profound realizations was to realize that no thought is true.
Wow. Right. Yeah.
That no thought can be true, and especially no belief system can be true as well, because belief is always an idea or a presumption of something that we do not fully know to be true, and that's why we believe it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a belief system; it would be a direct knowing. So, a belief system is always of the unknown that we can't know to be fully true. And again, also thought itself. No thought in itself can be true, because thought can't encapsulate the reality of life as it is. There's no way that any thought can be a true thought about reality. It's impossible, because if we said that a thought could be true about reality, then what that does is it tried to encapsulate an infinite reality with a finite reality. The finite reality being a thought, and the infinite reality being everything as it is, pure life as it is. So any kind of finite idea that we try to put on the infinite, there's no way that can be true.
So what is true then in everything we've spoken about so far? To you, what is true to you in all of this? If thought's not true, and I can understand, where you're coming from, what is true?
When thought is relaxed, what is true then becomes seen, if you will. It becomes seen. So the only thing that, and again, I explore people, don't believe what I'm saying. By all means, don't believe what I'm saying, because otherwise it's completely contrary to what I'm saying. If anybody tries to believe what I'm saying, that's what the methods are for. That's what the pointings are for, is for each individual to come to see that themselves through their own direct experience.
Yeah.
But when the mind is relaxed, if you will, or we don't believe what we think, is another way of putting it, then what happens is that life is revealed to us. The life that was always in front of us, that is us, then makes itself known. As soon as we disengage and drop the ideas of what the mind is saying about life. In other words, what happens is we move out of the intellectual level, and we move to this more experiential level that is a pure seeing of life, a pure direct seeing of life. And and it sees life as it is without any kind of filter, without any mental filter on life. And that's the only way that we come to see the truth of life as it is and self as it is.
But coming from the space that you're describing, previously as well, you would be then whatever is in front of you from those quiet moments of thoughts, the life that's in front of you now, the actuality of it, really embracing the work that you suggest. We would be happy with the results anyway, because you'd be happy with present moment. Even if it didn't look too great, you'd still be happy with it, because even though it's a reflection of where you are now, you're still inducing that space of actually in present moment right now, everything's great. And if I'm working towards something better, well, that's even better in a lot of sense, because you know that the reality that you observe now is going to change at some point. It's going to give way to something else. Man, these are deep conversations. I'm not even too sure if I'm explaining it very well.
This is where mine becomes very tricky. This is where words tend to fail to a certain degree. I mean, we can do our best that we can do with the words, and we can point, but this is where the words start to fail. But yeah, what I would say is I wouldn't say so much that everything becomes great or that we're happy with everything. What I would say is that there is a peace with everything. So as an example, obviously somebody that's being tortured is probably not going to be happy with being tortured. I think anybody would, it's going to still be what you would call unpleasant. But even in the midst of all challenging situations, no matter what that is, there can still be this undercurrent of peace there. There can still be this freedom from it, even though it's being experienced. Because we're accessing, again, this deeper dimension of self, which is actually dimensionless, that allows everything to happen and to be there, but without any kind of struggle against any of it, without any resistance against any of it. And so in that sense, yeah, it doesn't then actually matter. In one sense, then it doesn't actually matter what happens necessarily, because you're not invested in things needing to be a different way for you to be okay with things as they are right now. So there's such a great freedom there that's beyond any words.
It is, yeah, it is. And just out of curiosity as well, do you drink? Is there any sort of vice that you have that you do?
Do I drink? I do everything. I do a bit of everything. I don't exclude. I go with whatever I feel in the moment. So if that means that I go around, if that means if I go around to a friend's house and he's smoking some pot, then maybe I will smoke some pot if the urge arises to smoke some pot. But most of the time, that's not the case. If I go out for a meal with friends and there is a glass of wine that's offered, or a beer, then maybe I will have a glass of wine or a beer. Maybe I won't. In other words, there's no parameters here. We're so free that we're free to experience everything, but we're not attached to anything. We don't need anything. There is no crutches. And that means that we're free to experience it all. There's just a great freedom there. It doesn't matter either way.
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah. Well, you can imagine myself being based in Amsterdam. Obviously, there's a coffee house everywhere. It's all legal over here. And yeah, I've been smoking a fair bit of pot now and then, only after work, never in the work day. Do you know what I mean? I think I would be very the alarm bells would be ringing if I was doing that.
Yeah.
But then, am I addicted a little bit to it? I'm enjoying it. But yeah, there could be a slight bit of addiction there, maybe.
This is an important point, Kevin. I think that it's great that you brought this up, because this is something that I think goes through people's minds on the spiritual path. Is, should I stay away from certain things, or should I just allow everything, sort of thing? Now, what I would say is, I like what Osho said about this. Osho was an Indian mystic, for those that don't know. But he said that before awakening occurs, before liberation or spiritual enlightenment happens, it's best not to indulge in those things that might knock you off track, because the mind comes in and the mind can create an addiction and attachment out of it. Because when the ego is still present, when the mind is still present, it's going to try and attach to certain things. But as soon as we've become free from that, it's the best of both worlds, because we're free from it, but we can also experience all of it, and it will not take us away from our own true nature, from our own freedom, if you will. But the funny thing is that when we actually come to that point, we might find that drinking alcohol or smoking marijuana, as an example, or whatever it is, we may feel in the moment that we'd rather not do that, because we are actually feeling a deeper, greater sense of peace than anything else could give us. So in that place, it doesn't really matter either way. We can take it or leave it. It's all okay.
I guess if you're doing it all the time, maybe even having a couple of drinks a night, it's so difficult, because I'm about to judge in this moment right now. How can I judge someone else when, I don't know what they're going through? I think it's down on a personal level, but there is guilt attached to such things, I think, for some people.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of that comes from religious conditioning, because you've sinned. A lot of it comes from religious conditioning that's passed down through into society. So like repression of sex or repression of certain things is still frowned upon, because there is certain conditionings in the mind. But at the same time, this is why I talk about in the book, we have to come to see what's most important for us, what we want more than anything. If we want freedom, if we want liberation, if we want to end the suffering, if we want to really step into our own true nature, then there is a degree of focus that's needed. And if there's going to be certain things that are going to distract us from that, then we might want to look at that, because sometimes the mind will try to latch onto those things in an attempt to kind of sabotage our direction into this greater sense of self, this greater freedom and truth. So we have to be very honest with ourselves, in other words, very honest.
Yes, we do. And I think sometimes, well, maybe not sometimes, maybe all the time, the soul is looking for that, that part of you. No, it's not a part of you, the soul. And it's just a word. It's just a word for something that's undescribable. This nature of who we really are, maybe, is probably looking for balance. Maybe more of the case. Do you think balance is a better word?
What I would say, I think I do talk about this in the book as well, is balance comes naturally when we're rooted in our own natural state. But balance, if we're trying to find balance in the outer world or even in the body, we're never going to get balance, because the world, including the physical body and including the mind, it's a fluctuating state. So it's constantly moving, constantly changing. So one minute, one day we wake up, we feel really balanced. But another day, tomorrow comes and all of a sudden we're out of balance. And then we're trying to seek and move ourselves back into balance again. So balance is constantly shifting all of the time. But yet when we relax and we let go and we move fully into our natural state and we coming from that direct experience of that, we're looking from that place. Balance in that instant is automatically brought about, if you will. It comes immediately. In other words, we could say it like this: when we're not looking for balance, when we just let go of the idea of balance and we relax, actually that is when the balance will come.
Have your friends changed quite a bit in in the years that you've been oh God, I was going to say finding yourself then, but it's not even that you have had this awakening experience? Have you gained new friends and lost old ones, or is it the case that you've still got your old friends and you've got new friends as well, because that's just the journey it's took you on?
What I found is that there's been a change of certain people moving out of the immediate circle, if you will, of my everyday life, if you will, and then new people come in, or stronger relationships formed with those people that were already kind of there before as well. And I think that's a natural part. I think that's just, you resonate with different people at different times, and different people resonate with you at different times. And I think it's a very natural thing for anybody going through changing course, if you will, coming from a different shift in experience, where things start to they will start to change on the outside. So different people will come about, different relationships. Those different relationships may still be the same before and after, but they may change in terms of how you experience them. But yeah, I do find that has happened, is that there is some people go away, some people come back, and it's just what's needed at that time for everybody concerned.
Do you find yourself a bit more sensitive nowadays, or do you actually find yourself a bit desensitized because you're in the moment all the time, in a sense, and actually in that space, like I've kept saying to you, there's less depression in a sense, and there's less worry. It's more you see the bigger picture, or you see the moment just for what it is right now, which is no judgment really as well.
Yeah, I would say an enhancement of sensitivity. I would say an enhancement of sensitivity because reality being only in this moment, if we're fully here, then we're going to be fully sensitive. The only other option of not being here is to be in the mind, and in the mind and to be in imagination and memory, which is not the true reality of this moment right now. So I would say that you become even more sensitive. Your senses become heightened, because there's not mind there to distort it. There's not mind there to take you off into imagination or to take you off into memory. So, like, as an example, when you're with a person, you're speaking with a person, what I found is that the connection's even tighter, because you're fully there, you're fully able to listen. The mind's not trying to take you anywhere. You're here, 100% rooted. And then true listening happens, true connection happens with people. So I found that it enriches your sensitivity, enriches your intimacy with those people that's in your kind of circle, if you will.
So many questions. I mean, even like to a point of less argumentative in a sense. Do you find yourself?
Yeah, definitely more accepting of how people are and not trying to change people. But at the same time, this is the beautiful balance or paradox of it, you could say, maybe, is that at the same time of being more accepting, more not judgmental of people, and just allowing people to be as they are, at the same time, if something arises, there may be a time where you feel to say something, that, okay, maybe you shouldn't be doing this, or I don't like it when you do this around me, as an example. So you don't become, in other words, you don't become a doormat. You don't become this kind of accepting doormat where everything is like, well, everything's just fine. And I'm not going to say something if something feels like it needs to be said.
No, that's right. But what you do become as well, most definitely from your space that you've got right now, is more loving, I think. And I think that's a massive reaction to other people, and something that some people, a lot of people, will find quite attractive as well, because they want what you've got, and they can't name it neither. um, yeah, I would say there's some much bigger things going on than even what we're describing, probably. And if the world, or if a large majority of people could come from this space, it would change overnight. And you must see as well that probably there's a lot of people in the spiritual field that you've now been mixing with, that do not come from the space that you're coming from, yet have done great work, yet are not able to come from the space you're coming from. No judgment.
No judgment. You know what? There is. How can I say this? How can I say this? It comes from a difference in depth of experience. Um, to me, there's like, you could say, three different types of teachers, if you will, if you want to call it teaching. And anybody knows that at a true level, it's actually not a teaching, but we use that word because that's what people recognize, and that's what they will be able to relate with. But on one level, there are those that just share concepts and ideas, secondhand information that they've learnt, that they've been given. They've read books, they've watched videos. And what happens is it can create like a bit of what you might call a spiritual ego, whereby the person wants to, and again, it can still come from good intentions. They may want to share, but they're sharing from a second-hand. They're not sharing from direct experience. It's from second-hand experience. And that's never going to be as potent as somebody that can share from direct experience. Just the same way that if somebody's not walked a particular path, how can they guide somebody on that path if they've not walked it themselves?
That's right.
And that's what a guru is, in the sense, from India, the word guru means that, a being which takes one from darkness into light. It just simply means one that is a sort of an expert in that field, just simply for the fact that they've walked that path themselves. That's all it is.
Yeah, and again, they would want you to become your own teacher. It's just what we're saying here right now. They do not want you to be a student all your life and look up upon, and they want you to move on to the next class, in a sense, and to definitely be the empowered person that they are for yourself. And then you can go on to help others and do the same.
Absolutely. And that's the compassion. A true teacher will have that compassion, where that's what they want, that they want people to become free, but they also realize and recognize that there is a process that has to take place, and there are certain things that has to happen for a being to really move into that themselves. So you have these teachers, one that teach on an intellectual level, you have these teachers that teach on an experiential level, and then you have teachers that are teachers of teachers. So in other words, they've not only come into their own direct nature, their own seeing, their own spiritual enlightenment, if you will, for want of a better word, but they've also walked that path of being a teacher of that, or a guide of that. And they can help those beings that are in that teaching stage themselves, that are just beginning, that have just come into their own nature, or those ones that are just sharing from an intellectual place. And I would urge people to those people that are on that first place of coming from more an intellectual place, I would urge them to complete their own path first, complete their own journey first, to come into that full nature themselves, to not stop where they are. Because a lot of people set up shop. They set up shop and they stop. They get these different ideas and concepts, and they hold on to them. The mind holds on to them. The ego holds on to them. And it can end up stopping people from going any further. because now they've formed this new identity, a spiritual identity, which is also based of what we could call the ego or the conditioned identity. You can't give a full depth from that place. The compassion really comes when a being has walked the path themselves.
Well, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah, and your book is just full of great information and great truth, your own truth, and this is what I really liked about your book when it came across my desk. I mean, we've barely, and I say this about a couple of books, but this is so true with your book as well. We've barely scratched the surface here. We really, really have not. I mean, this is a like I say, a good read, and there's a lot in this book that you've done, and a lot of love that you've put in there as well. But people can also connect with you directly, can't they, as well? You've got some events that are taking place very soon.
Absolutely, yeah. I want to make this available for people in person. It's one thing to read a book, and it can be very powerful, and to watch videos as well. But it's another thing to be in the atmosphere of many people that are all going towards the same direction, you could say. And so we have a retreat coming up in February 2017, from the 24th to the 26th of February. And that's going to be in North Yorkshire. You can find information about that at silenttruth.co.uk.
I see you taking this elsewhere as well. I bet there's a lot of places you'd like to take this work and do these in-person retreats.
Absolutely, Kevin. Yeah. I feel like this is just the beginning, and I feel like we'll do regular retreats in the UK and then elsewhere as well. Maybe the States. I've done retreats in the States before as well. Wherever people want it, wherever people feel, if the people feel drawn towards this type of work, if you will, or towards the meditation and self-realization retreats, then that's where we'll go. We'll try and make it available to as many people as possible.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, not obviously you've got to plan things, and you're all about that as well. What would you like? Is there any? Do you ever think to yourself, "Oh, I'd like this type of future, or I'd like my future to head towards this"? Are you setting any intentions like that at all?
To a certain degree, yeah. To a certain degree, but then I'm also, I can't do anything other than do that. But allowing it to just happen all naturally in the moment. Certain things happen, certain things don't happen. I will do my best to make sure that the intentions that I have happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's many factors involved in that. But yeah, I will do my best to bring that about. But I see that I see this becoming available for many people, and that's what I want, because I want people to be free. I want people to. I think there's no bigger tragedy than people really not discovering the potential of their own nature and the depth of their own nature. I think that is a real tragedy if people don't come into that. So it's so beautiful.
And all the answers they were looking for were there all the time, just within. And if they just used a bit of meditation, it would have, it maybe would have released the pain a little bit. But everything in its own time as well. Everything the way it's meant to be, most definitely. What would you say is a really important message of your work?
I would say that that the answer is right here and now. That the answer is right here and now, and that actually, this is the funny thing, the paradoxal thing. Again, we're using words, but when we drop the questions, we also drop the answers, because the answers and the questions are linked together. They are two opposites of the same coin. So it's not so much that we're going to get answers, it's more that we come into the directness of life. that we step into life, and that is an experiential thing. And so everything that I'm doing is to bring people to that experiential experience, if you will, as opposed to giving any kind of answers or concepts or anything. It's more that it's to bring people directly into that experience, and then it will be there for people. It will be there.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Well, I feel like I've left out so much on this interview. Time is just not on our side right now in one sense, but I think we've got everything in here that we needed to. And I would just like to say, Chris Smith, just thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure. And I enjoy what you do, and I enjoy the work you do and the material that you share. And keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.